Okay, so this is kind of exciting. This is actually probably the first time I've ever had. I'm trying to think. I've ever had a repeat person on that's gotten their ex back. It's sort of like a follow up sort of look, and you have went down a really interesting path. Now, for those of you who don't know, this is Buffy the Vampire Slayer. That's what I like to call her. Her name is Sarah Michelle, just like Sarah Michelle Gellar, and she's a pretty big member of our Facebook group, our private support group, and I think it was like on one of the Facebook lives you had like popped on, and I was like, hey, your name's like Sarah Michelle Gellar from Buffy. I'm gonna start calling you Buffy. And so now every once in a while I'll be on like a Facebook live and someone will like talk about you, but they'll call you Buffy instead of like your name, so but yeah, she's got a real fascinating story in the fact that she actually did get her ex back, and then what's more, you got engaged to him like right afterwards, right?
Yeah,
But
definitely.
unfortunately, there's not a happy ending to that story.
No, no.
They broke up again. But so she started using kind of the program again, and then something really interesting happened. She didn't just. So let me get this straight. So you're broken up with your ex again after you're engaged, right? You're heartbroken.
Yeah.
Immediately afterwards, you jumped right in to do the program again, but you had like a different mindset this next time. Were you trying to win him back specifically? Was that like your end goal?
At first it was. Yeah, definitely. At first my end goal was, okay, like I really care about him. I really love him.
Right.
I want it to work. Like that was initially the goal at first.
And
But
that's when something really interesting happened, because instead of attracting him back, you actually attracted another ex back.
yeah.
So, and now we were talking before we started recording, and she's telling me, yeah, now that she won this other ex back, and she's dating him now. She's really happy with him, but now that she's dating him, her ex-boyfriend or ex-fiancé, we'll call him, wants her back now. So
Yeah.
it's like if there's ever a perfect person to follow, it would be Buffy here. So why don't you give us your perspective of like how all of that went down? So because I remember I'm often constantly referring to our first interview, like how it went, and anytime someone needs a good success story, I point them to that video or that interview. And now we're doing a follow up. It's really awesome to talk to you again.
Yeah. So like my first time around with the whole no contact rule, it was tough, like don't get me wrong. And essentially like everything I did in the no contact rule when we first like went through that, like it got him back. Like that was like a given. It got him back because like I think he felt withdrawals. But the second time around I did no contact after we broke up, like it was just like he was irrelevant, because like he didn't even act like he wanted to try anymore at this point. Like it was totally different. It was totally different. And like I wouldn't hear from him for days on end and whatnot. But like while I wasn't hearing from him, I was talking to my ex, one that I'm dating now. Like we were just talking because like he knew what was going on. Like he wanted to kind of help me through it, and I was like, all right, well this is cool. Like I ended up actually going to see him because he lives in San Jose, California, which is 3 hours away from where I live. And so I went and saw him. We hung out, whatnot. Like I said, we've always been best friends. Like that was the big thing. We've known each other.
So
15
you guys always connected real well then. Would you estimate you connected better than actually the man you were like engaged to marry? Like you had a better like connection, perhaps?
Yeah, we have, like, him and I have a better connection. We're more compatible. Like, we can just sit there and talk for hours on end. Versus my ex-fiance, like, he was the hardest person in the world to talk to.
Yeah, I know. I remember. So one of the huge assets of being a part of the Facebook group and a part of the private support group was the fact that you're able to kind of like talk to a lot of different people about your situation.
Yeah.
And I remember you would post some stuff that he would post. Like, I think he took like a picture with a blow up doll once or
Yes!
something.
Oh my god!
It was like, what?
But he put on there as a caption, "This is my new girlfriend."
Right. Yeah. And you were just like, ladies, explain this. And I was like looking at that and was like, what the hell is wrong with this guy? But I think I wrote on there, I was like, well, he's clearly hurting. Like, why else would you like post something like that? But
so pissed.
Yeah. Well, I actually have to commend you though, because one of the other things you started doing that I really took notice of is the second time that you did no contact on him, you really did a lot with your social media. Like you were posting pictures, you were going out, and I was like, well, yeah, that's exactly what you need to be doing. And I really wish more people would like take your lead, but I don't know whether they're just lazy or they're just scared to get outside their comfort zone, but it seems to have kind of worked.
Yeah, it did, because I actually was talking to my ex-fiancé yesterday, and he told me, he's like, wow, you get all this attention now, and it's like, so jealous, but like, basically, like, him and I, we're on okay terms, like, we talk as friends, but there's nothing there, even though he still wants me back, there's nothing there anymore. But I think initially, for me, what helped me kind of get on from that was, I got angry. I got so
Yeah, I remember you getting super angry. Yeah.
I was so pissed off and angry, but that was like my motivation to kind of, you know what, give him the middle finger and say, screw you, I'm happy, like, I'm going to do what I want. And I think for some people that could be a motivation. Other people, like, they could be driven by other things, but for me, what my drive was, okay, he wants to act like this, I'm going to show him what he doesn't have.
It seemed to have worked. And, you know, it's really interesting, too, because before, like, just focusing on your ex-fiancé here, he was actually your ex-fiancé when you initially got introduced to the ex-boyfriend recovery program.
Yeah.
And then I remember when we had our interview, you, like, specifically stated in the interview, there's no way, we're taking it slow, but there's no way that, like, I'm going to say yes if he gets engaged again. And then a couple weeks later, you got caught up and obviously got engaged again. And then he just broke your heart again. So you can see why she's super, super angry. It's like you feel kind of like led on this wild goose chase to, like, get married. And then this guy.
Yeah, no, it was really more or less just, it was aggravating. It was like, how could you be so immature and childish? Like, you make a commitment, follow through with it. But he couldn't follow through with it. And I really think that going into, like, the no contact rule was a really good push for me to kind of distance myself.
Yeah.
Because I needed to do that for myself, because I kind of felt as if the relationship had become toxic.
So you say the relationship became toxic. What specifically about it? Was he just always, like, starting fights? Was he just always seeming unhappy? Were you always unhappy? What specifically about it did you estimate was toxic?
See, I have always kind of had felt like I was happy, like, but my friends had started pointing out, like, you don't seem like you're truly happy. Like, I had a friend that I work with, she, like, pointed that out to me, even though I felt happy, but I honestly couldn't see it until after we broke up the second time. I couldn't see it. Like, I couldn't see how miserable I really was, because I was blinded by the fact that I had somebody that I truly thought that I was meant to be with back in my life. Like, I was so blinded by the things that I overlooked, all the little things I overlooked, like, actually, like, big things that could make or break the relationship, but I was so blinded by the fact that I thought I loved him.
And I imagine since you put all this work, like, into getting him back, and then you finally did get him back, it's sort of like, okay, well, I've got him, and I don't want to let him go.
Yeah.
You know? And so let me get it straight, though. He was the one who broke up with you the second time around as well. What was that scenario like? What was that situation like?
Well, we had actually, like, honestly, like, I kind of had seen it coming.
Okay.
Like, I hate to say it. Like,
the signs were there.
Signs.
Yeah.
Because he had left to go to a trip on spring break in Mexico the week before, and, like, we barely talked. And when he came back home, and I had this feeling. I had a feeling something was going on. I had a feeling there was something wrong. I went in his phone, and he was talking to his ex-girlfriend. And I confronted him about it, and he's all like, oh, it meant nothing, we're just friends, blah, blah, blah. That was the start of kind of this chain of events that has happened, and then from there it proceeded on to, we started fighting. We've gotten a fight about little things, and then what kind of initially broke things was he got really upset at me about the fact that we have a dog together. He couldn't put her in his name. And that essentially was like almost like a deal breaker to him. Like, we couldn't share this. And I think he kind of felt emasculated. And because he felt emasculated, like, it just led to this big old fight and like everything he had thought of had just built up and come out. And he's like, you never let me do anything. You're so controlling. Like, it just led into everything was my fault.
Well, let me kind of point at the controlling aspect there. I don't agree with that assessment at all, because from the way you're saying, you let him go to Mexico with his friends on spring break. Now, most women I know would not be kind of cool with that unless they were also taken along, because what often happens in Mexico on spring break? Men start meeting women, and who knows if that's what happened with his ex-girlfriend there. You know?
Exactly. And so, like, it was essentially, like, it was kind of like that was, like, our little deal breaker, like, because everything had essentially just changed after that, and he ended up breaking up with me that night.
That night.
Yeah.
So immediately he breaks up with you. You're obviously very upset. And, you know, I remember it's really interesting. The first time that you broke up, you had told me a story about how he was, like, going out at, like, 2 in the morning, or, like, not coming back till 2 in the morning, not having, like, an explanation for where he was.
Yeah.
And it was just like, you're just like, what the heck is going on here? And now this time around, it seems like he did not want... how old is he? He's pretty young, right?
He's 20.
So he's probably thinking, like, I want to be free. I don't want to be tied down. That's my guess.
Yeah, but you know, the funny part is like, now that, like, it's all said and done and I have moved on, he wants that now. And it's so funny.
Well, he wants what he can't have, you know?
Exactly. And that's the thing that I've tried to, because like I said, I've talked to other girls, like, in the Facebook group, and that's one thing that I've tried to kind of tell them, like, you want to show your ex what they don't have, because guys want what they can't have.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big thing that this whole thing has taught me, is, like, you need to work on yourself. Like, that's a big thing, is work on yourself and do what makes you happy, because at the end of the day, if you can't make yourself happy, who's going to?
Yeah, I kind of have a problem, actually, with the Facebook group. Oftentimes, and maybe you can help me solve it, but oftentimes I am always talking in this narrative where I'm saying improve yourself, you know, health, wealth, relationships, make sure that you're moving on without moving on, make sure that you're projecting how you want to be seen. And oftentimes people will just kind of nod their heads, but very rarely will they actually implement it. So why do you think women don't implement this? Because what I'm trying to do by doing interviews with people who get their exes back is show you that this works, and this is the thing that works the best. Out of everything that I've studied, this is the thing that works the best. So why do you think women fight against this? Do you think it's just the fact that they're so hurt and upset by the breakup and they're just blinded by it, or is it that they're just lazy?
You know, I don't know if it's that they're lazy. I think it's got different aspects of they're scared, or like they're just so hurt that they don't know what else to do, because I've been on kind of both ends of the spectrum. I've been on the end where I've had a hard time getting out. I've had a hard time getting out doing things because I was so upset. Like, I couldn't think or anything. But that was my fault in the sense of, like, I wasn't doing it. Like, I just couldn't bring myself to do it. And essentially that's where you could say, yeah, I was lazy because I couldn't do it because I was so focused on the negative. Like, I focused way too much on the negative. But, like, my second time around, on the other opposite end of the spectrum for me, I got mad, I got angry, and so that was essentially what pushed me, what motivated me. I think the biggest issue for women who can't do it is essentially probably because they're hurt. They don't know how. Some people just don't know how. And, you know, and other times it goes in one ear and out the other.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I think that's really insightful of you to say. I think that's absolutely right. I think they're just so hurt, they just can't even bring themselves to follow quite simple directions, actually. But it's I suppose if you're really hurting in a really emotional state, it's simple directions become very complex. It's
Yes,
it's hard to think straight.
well, because you're trying to sort everything out in your mind that has happened. Like, you don't know what the hell's going on. You don't know what the hell's going through their head. And essentially, like, you become confused. And it's hard to kind of keep sight and keep focus of what you should do. I found that the easiest thing for me is to just follow my gut. Follow my gut. Like, that's been, like, the biggest thing for me. But with following my gut has come following the program. I mean, because I found that the second time around, that was the best thing for me. Like, I mean, I did it the first time. I didn't stick to ritual as I should have the first time around.
Yeah.
That was a big problem with me, is it was hard to kind of stick with it. But when I truly dedicated myself to it, like, that's when I saw results. Because my first time around, it was when I truly dedicated myself that I found results. And the second time, when I truly dedicated myself.
The interesting thing I'm noticing about your situation specifically is the first time around you did the no contact rule, and I think that's pretty much all you had to do to get your ex to come back to you, correct? And then oftentimes when I do these Facebook Lives on the private support group and I'm telling women not to fall too in love with the no contact rule, or just you can't constantly go back and do the no contact rule again, because it always loses a little bit of effectiveness each time you try it again. But it doesn't mean it's not effective. But I think your case is a perfect example of that, because the second time around you did pretty much a full no contact and he didn't come back the next time. Not until much later. But I'm sure it still had an impact. Him seeing all those social media things you were posting and everything. And obviously it had doing that actually had this really interesting ramification of it actually attracted your ex-boyfriend.
Yeah, and see, like, my second time, I kind of revamped my version of it, and the fact that I didn't care whether he contacted me. Like, I mean, the first week I did. I cared, like, but after, like, so much time, like, I didn't care anymore, and it was more or less I was doing things for myself at that point, and the focus wasn't on him, but it was on me. And I think that that's a big, I think that's personally, like,
it's paradigm shift. Yep, a complete mindset shift.
Yeah, and I think that that's a huge problem, like, in, like, girls that are going through this, is that they can't switch their minds. And I think that's essentially one of the hardest things, is to switch your mindset of it. But I don't think you can fully get the full experience that you should unless you change your mindset.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard for a lot of women to do, because right after this breakup, they're thinking, I want him back, I want him back, I want him back, as opposed to, I don't care if he talks to me. I just honestly don't care. And I think it's important that, I don't think this is something you can even fake. It's sort of like I felt like when you got angry and you just didn't care, you weren't faking it just for the sake of, like, okay, I just need to pretend like this is how I am. You probably just were legitimately like, I just don't care. And that almost makes it more effective.
Yeah, and, I remember this was one thing that when I was going through it last time, when I was going through that process of changing my mindset, they can tell, I swear, they can tell when you're changing your mindset, because it's like that pull, like, they feel that pull. They feel you pulling from them, because the second I started doing that was the second I started getting attention from him again.
Yeah, it's interesting too. As you was talking, I was thinking, not all situations are also created equal. So when I talk to you, I get the sense that you didn't do a ton of begging. You didn't, like, you weren't too natty with how you were texting him, which I feel like some women, on the other hand, they do those things, and that actually lowers their, like, starting point. They have to, like, work harder at that point. So it's an interesting thing that you have to keep in mind as you go through this process, that how you handle this breakup can actually determine your overall chance. Like, I notice a lot of women who specifically just do some of the craziest stuff, and they come to me and they're wondering, well, why haven't I gotten him back yet? And I'm saying, well, you got to understand, someone like Sarah here, she handled the breakup in probably a normal way, right? But you handled the breakup in a not normal way, which means your starting point to get him back is much deeper. It's much further. So you have to, like, it's going to take longer.
Yeah, no, definitely. And, like, I'll admit, like, when we first, initially in my first breakup, like, I begged. Mm-hmm. I begged. I constantly, like, I would blow up his phone. Like, there was one time, I think I called him, like, 15 times and, like, texted him, like, 30.
But not 50. You didn't call him 50 times. Okay.
No, but, like, I mean, I went through that, so I've been through that. And, like I said, I've been on both ends of the spectrum where I've done that, been there, done that. But I've also learned to control myself and know what the best thing to do is, because if you just sit there and beg, that is so unattractive. That is going to put you even further out of even getting to that point. Mm-hmm. I mean, your actions are what puts you in that position. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm not saying that, like, the breakup, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about after. Your actions are what affects your ultimate overall goal.
I see. So let's kind of talk about the new guy, because that's where it starts getting exciting. You were originally you had an angry mindset of, I don't care, I don't even want him back anymore. I'm doing this for me. And then this new guy pops in, your ex-boyfriend. You just, like, not without even trying, just attracted him. So how did that go down? Well, like give me the details here.
So, actually, before my ex and I had broke up, he had actually messaged me just to kind of see how I was doing. Mm-hmm. And so we see each other on occasions, like, every now and again. And, like, we're very, very close in the sense that we, no matter how much time has passed, we still tell each other everything. And, like, I actually had texted him, like, the night that it happened. He, like, immediately called me. And he's, like, checking up on me to see how I'm doing. And, like, he essentially texted me every day for, like, 2 weeks. Like, like, we FaceTimed, we would call each other, like, because he was just checking up on me. And I think that he really kind of devoted himself to making sure I was okay. And I'm not going to lie, I wasn't completely dedicated to just talking to him. I talked to tons of other guys. Like,
okay.
Like, I went to parties, I went out, I talked to guys, I flirted, I did all of that. And, I mean, we still talked, and he knew I was going out and doing that. So, I mean, it didn't bother me. It didn't bother him. I mean, we've been friends for 15 years. Our first time we ever dated was actually when we were in 7th grade.
Wow, long time ago. Ages ago. So it was like young love when you don't know anything, you know?
We were 12 years old when we first started dating.
Wow, 12 years old. Wow, that's like a kids movie type stuff, you know, like the Little Rascals or something like that.
we were 12 years old, and then, like, he moved to a little town like 30 minutes away from me, and, like, we kind of just lost contact for a little bit, and then randomly, like, my sophomore year of high school, like, I called him and I was like, hey, what are you doing? Like, what's up? And, like, that's kind of what started the second time we dated, and, like, I think we dated for a good few months in high school, but he ended up breaking up with me back in high school because, like, he didn't know what he wanted. It was more of a mutual thing of, okay, like, we're young, we need to live our lives, like, let's go do that. And he promptly remembers this, that he had told me, if it's meant to be, it'll all work out down the road. That was one thing, that was one of the last things he'd said to me when we broke up. And he reminds me of that today. And so we still stayed in contact. Like, we even actually tried making things work, like, a couple of times after that in high school, but it just wasn't the right timing. Like, we were both wanted different things, but we still stayed in contact. Like I said, we still told each other everything. And come to now, I mean, not much has changed. I mean, he's still my best friend, and we're coming at all, because he knows what I've been through. Like, he knows everything. And so he knows that I'm still because I still am going through some stuff, trying to deal with stuff, you know, because it takes time. Yeah. And he's fully supports me and everything. So, I mean, this has been very, very healthy for me in the sense of he's very patient with me, and like he lives 3 hours away from me. Like he
Okay.
moved.
So it's
He
kind of
moved.
like a long distance thing. So it's not
Yeah,
like, but not so long. You could probably definitely see each other on the weekends pretty
yeah.
easily.
We see each other mostly on weekends, but we still talk and we communicate every night. Like we text throughout the day. He FaceTimes me every night. Like because his biggest thing is at the end of the day he wants to make sure I'm okay.
Mm.
And like he's very, very focused on
Jesus
me.
Christ, this guy sounds like God.
He is like perfect. Like I mean,
Yeah, he's pretty perfect. Don't you break up with this guy. This guy is too good.
oh yeah. No, he's like honestly like he's already told me that he like his end goal is to marry me. He's already
Wow.
told me that. Yeah.
Okay, I'd be running for the hills if I. No, I'm just kidding.
No, like he told me he's like that's just the end goal, but at the same time he has that understanding of if things don't work out, no matter what, there's still that basis of friendship. And he tells me all the time that we're best friends before we're in a relationship. Like the focus is we're best friends because at the end of the day, we're still best friends. And then he kind of ties in, but we're also in a relationship, but we're best friends first.
That's funny. So your best friends first. So I see what he's doing. It's the non-threatening approach to attract you. It's just like, don't worry, we'll be friends forever, type thing.
No, but it's also very comforting because
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
communication is great. Like we communicate so well with each other, and that's never been an issue.
So you're at this interesting point where you actually can compare what the relationship. You're close enough to that breakup with your ex-boyfriend or ex-fiancé rather, where you can compare what the new guy is like with him. So has it been kind of refreshing to be with someone who's patient and understanding and caring versus someone who's maybe not patient or maybe a
You
little
know,
quick to
it
fly
is
off the handle?
it is the best thing in the world because I can clearly reflect, and that's what I was saying. Of I realized that how toxic my last relationship was because like I see all the things that totally went wrong and all the things that were just like why did I put up with that? Like I can see all that and like know that I deserved so much better. Like I deserved like somebody that's going to communicate, that's going to talk things out with me, that's going to push me and motivate me. And I kind of noticed that with even my new relationship that like he communicates with me. We talk on a deeper level than just we're in a relationship. He pushes me and motivates me to be a better person. And like I didn't have anything like that in my last relationship. If anything, I was the one pushing and motivating him, but I wasn't getting that in return. And as we were fighting because like I was trying to push him to be better and I was the one trying to motivate and talk things out, but he was very closed off and didn't want that. And I personally don't think that that's healthy. And like it kind of was a realizer to me in my new relationship that this is how it's supposed to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like I don't know if you're a big fan of that show How I Met Your Mother. If you've ever seen that show, there's this episode where Ted's dating this woman, and this woman he's like dating this woman for the entire like season, right? And this woman's like the most unsupportive like woman in the world. They're always fighting, and then he he's like talking to some other girl, Marshall's wife, Lily, and he sees how Marshall and Lily are like supporting each other, and he goes, "Oh my God, is that what support feels like? Oh my God, it's great. I'm so miserable with her." And he's like trying to. I'm almost thinking of that, like when you're talking about your ex, because it feels like it was maybe a little bit of an unsupportive type relationship where you're on edge constantly.
Yeah, and that's the thing is when we first got back together, like I said, I was happy, but he made me feel like I was on thin ice with him.
Which is
I don't live like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's also funny now that he wants you back, that he sees
Right?
another man has you, right? And
The funny part is that they know each other.
oh, that's almost better then.
They do not like each other.
So, has your ex-fiance made any moves to try to woo you back yet?
Yes, actually, he has.
All
He
right.
is.
So, are we allowed to talk about this? I don't want to upset the apple cart with your current boyfriend, or if hopefully you've told your
Probably he's
current
ever
boyfriend.
do this anyway. But no, he actually
So did you like walk into your room one day and see him like lying naked on the bed, like just with like rose petals everywhere? It's like, take me back. Was that
No,
is that the moves he's made?
well, not that. It was not that direct.
Okay.
But like a couple weeks ago, like he started to do this thing where he would call me every morning or every night, like just to talk. And I would be like, okay, why are you calling me? Like, what do you want? And he's like, I just want to talk to you. I'm like, all right, cool. And then just within this last week, it's gotten like really, he's become very much more direct in the sense that, like, I miss you, I want you back, like, and he comes over because, like I said, his best friend lives with me, so like he comes over, kind of hangs out, or like he'll come over here to pick something up.
Hmm.
Turns into, oh, let's talk.
Well,
And it's
in his mind, he's thinking, well, even though she's dating this new guy, I was engaged to her twice. There's nothing he
yeah,
can do to
and he's
compete with that.
funny you say that. Funny you say that because he said the exact same thing. And he tells me, he's like, I don't see you as in a relationship. I just see you as you're with somebody who gives you attention.
Hmm.
And so he he literally like has told me like I messed up. I want you back. Like, and he told me, he's like, you should leave your boyfriend and come be with me. He told me that yesterday, actually.
Wow. So this guy is actually trying to win you back, which
Yeah.
is phenomenal. But it's also kind of, I can see how it can cause friction in your current relationship.
Yeah, and I mean, I've already told him, like, look, we've been down this road. I gave you a chance.
Gave
Like,
him
I
two
gave
chances.
you another chance, like,
Right.
after up, like, but you didn't show yourself. You didn't, because that was the thing, is he wasn't proving himself. So I was like, okay, well, fine. I mean, somebody over here is, like, totally giving me everything I want, so, like, I'm gonna go give that a shot. And since you're over here doing your own thing, playing with blow-up dolls, like, you should go do that.
So, from the sense I'm getting, you do not want him back. Would there ever be a scenario where you would take him back?
Honestly, like, if, God forbid, anything happened to my relationship I'm in now, I don't know, because I don't think I would want to put myself through that again. Unless there was some dramatic change and he just totally did a 360, which I don't think he'll ever do.
Well, in my experience, people don't necessarily change that often, but what they will do is change in a short term and then slowly kind of revert back to their own
Yeah,
sort of
exactly. And see,
standard.
when he's doing the stuff that he does now, I'm thinking, why couldn't you have done that when we were in a relationship? Like, what's so different now? Is it because you're jealous, or is it because you really realize that you screwed up? And I don't think that I could ever put myself through that again. I say that now, but things change, and
Yeah.
like, because I noticed that within this whole process, I've done a lot of back and forth just as much as he has. I've done a lot of back and forth of, oh, I want this to work, but then I think about it and, like, no, he screwed with my head, like, I'm done, like, and I did my own, like, back and forth stuff just as much as they do,
Mm-hmm.
and I think we all do, because we're all confused about what we want versus what reality should be and what reality is.
Mm. So, the new guy. I'm going to actually give you a bit of a relationship pep talk here. The new guy, have you told him about these advances that your ex has made towards you, your ex-fiancé has made towards you,
Yes.
you did the right thing, because you'll win so many relationship points that way. Just it's a perfect way to build trust, to tell someone like that. Like, even though if he gets a little upset about it, and he gets even upset at you, just know inside that he appreciates it.
Yeah.
So it's definitely the way to go.
His thing is like, because he asked me, he's like, well, did you do anything? And I said, no. And he's like, well, I mean, I trust you, so, I mean, there's nothing else to it. Like, he tells me all the time, you have no idea, you don't understand just how much I trust you, because I've never done anything to prove him otherwise.
Mm-hmm. Oh, so I'm for sure, though, that your current boyfriend is going to get jealous at some point, because it doesn't seem like your ex-fiance this is getting complicated. Your ex-fiance is going to let up anytime soon. Seems like he's going to keep trying until he eventually gets a yes from you. So have you ever thought of just flat out telling him, look, this is never going to happen. You need to back off. Like, you're making me uncomfortable. You and your blow up doll are making me uncomfortable.
Yeah, I actually have told him that, like, look, like, what's done is done. Like, it's time to move on. But he comes back with a rebuttal and all that. And
just use the exact words, "You're making me uncomfortable," and that'll make him kind of stop in his place, because he's got a God complex in his mind. Like, he thinks he's God. Like, he thinks you're gonna fall over yourself for him.
Little does he know I won't.
Yeah. So maybe just by saying that, you can kind of get him to take the pressure off a little bit, but I don't see him letting up anytime soon, which, I mean, is kind of like a fun thing for you, probably, because you're just like, I got the last laugh, but at the same time, it could be kind of hard for a relationship to survive that,
Yeah, no, and I get that, and, like, for me, I really don't want any bad blood with anyone, and I've already told him, look, it's just friends, like, that's all I want, that's all it's gonna be, because it's just not gonna work. I've already told him, like, look, we obviously weren't meant to be.
Well, hopefully he takes it. Something tells me he won't, but hopefully he takes that and just backs off. But it is what it is, I suppose. So, without a doubt, you probably are just like, either you have the greatest luck in the world, or you are just like perfect at what you do. So if someone who's new to this process is coming in this and saying, well, where do I start? What would you tell them has worked best for you in getting your exes back?
Honestly, the whole idea of working on yourself.
So mindset shifts, working on yourself, basically putting the focus on you.
Yeah, putting the focus on yourself, because if you don't put that focus on yourself, you're just going to keep going backwards. I mean, you can do the no contact rule all you want, but if you're focusing on him the entire time, you're just setting yourself up to be back in the same position. And that's, I think, the hardest thing to understand, is you have to focus on yourself, because I will preach this. I will always preach this. If you don't work on yourself, who's going to really make you happy at the end of the day?
Yeah, and how can you really be happy knowing that you could be a better version of yourself, or you could attract someone better?
Like, you can't truly make anybody else happy either, though, if you're not truly happy with yourself. And I think that that's one of the best things with no contact, is it gives you that opportunity to work on yourself. But if you're not taking advantage of that time during no contact, what are you really doing? Why are you really doing this? I mean,
so it sounds like you read the book and you listened to the book, which it's funny. I'll see some women on the group will make all these boisterous claims, and then someone will say like NC or UG, and they're just like, what does that mean? And you can clearly tell they haven't even read the book. It's like, at least read the book first before you like ask something.
See, and I've read the book. I've never really actually had to get to the point where I've had to go through like the texting phases and whatnot.
That just goes to show me that you're super effective during no contact.
Well, and see, I honestly, I think that, the texting phase is good, but I think if you do your no contact the right way, like, how much of that texting phase do you really have to enforce? I mean,
very true. The way I tried to piece it together is that there's always a synergy between everything. So if you take it like step by step and you do every step correctly, and that's the important part, not a lot of people do every step correctly, it will bleed over into the texting. And then if you do texting correctly, it'll bleed over into phone calls and then to in-person interactions and then obviously to a relationship. But the no contact rule is without a doubt the most important piece of the puzzle, but you have to do it right.
It makes it organic. I mean, it makes things just blend because, I mean, yeah, you can do the texting phase, you can get into the phone call phase, but if you're really just focused on that, what part of it is truly organic?
Yeah, true.
And that's why I think no contact is literally the best thing.
The best thing. You heard it here, folks. Buffy believes in no contact. So go out and do it if you're not doing it already.
I literally will stand by the no contact rule. Like, stand by that without a doubt.
You know the great thing for you, though, I think, is that you've done this more than once. So it's almost like you've proven to yourself, oh, wow, this really works. Like, this is the second time this has worked. And look, I've got even like a better result than the first time. My ex, who I wanted back, wants me back, and I attracted my ex, and now I'm dating him. It's like you got like a better result the second time around. But
oh, most definitely.
But the funny part is you also have tools going forward for the rest of your life to know exactly how to handle a breakup, essentially.
Yeah.
Because if, God forbid, anything happens with your current boyfriend, which, you know, fingers crossed, hoping it doesn't, but if it does, you'll know exactly what to do.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think that these tools that you develop and like you learn just from reading your book, I think they're so key and so important. But I think people overlook it because they're just looking at the whole idea. And I think that, yeah, you want to look at the whole idea, but what are you doing in that idea? Like, what are you doing? Like,
well, the devil's in the details, right? So it's really important to make sure that it's not enough just to ignore your ex for 30 days, right? The important part is that you make the most of that time like you did. So, I mean, because I you know, we're doing an interview here, so it's not like I can just pull up your Facebook post and say, look what she did here. This is exactly what she did, right? Blah, blah, blah. But one thing that she was amazing at doing, she did lots of different profile pictures. She went out with her friends. She took pictures. She dated around. These are kind of really important things that you need to do. And obviously it worked. I mean, the proof is in the pudding here.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, it took my ex probably because it's been a little over 2 months since we broke up. It took him about 2 months to kind of finally realize, oh my God, what did I do?
Right.
It took him 2 months. It took him watching me. It took him watching me with other people, talking to other people. Mm-hmm. It took all of that. And I mean, sometimes that's just how it works. That's just how the cards fall. But like, if they like to see what they can't have, I swear. And
the other interesting thing that you're pointing out, now that we're talking about time frames, and I do have to go really quick, so I will try to make this as quick and to the point as possible. But the first time that you did no contact, he came back like that, right?
Yeah.
The second time, it took him a little bit longer, but I would actually argue sometimes it's beneficial for it to take longer because then he has more time to sit and stew and think about what he's lost, you know? So just because it takes a little bit longer to get your ex back doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. I would actually argue if you get your ex back after a long time, that relationship might have a better chance to survive in the long run because he's had more time to sit and determine, wow, I really did make a mistake, versus maybe the impulsive decision of taking an ex back right away. I find often those relationships, like you have experienced, break up.
Been on both ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
I totally agree. Totally agree.
Well, I'm so happy it all worked out for you. Like, in a weird way, I know it's like, whatever happened to your life, it just like happened in a weird kind of way to unfold, but you got a better result the second time around, which is crazy. Like, not only essentially you could have your ex back if you wanted right now,
Yeah,
but not only that, but you found someone better. So it's like
Yes.
you're just wanted by men, which is every woman's dream, I'm assuming.
It's the ungettable factor.
Yeah. Talking to an ungettable girl right here, folks.
So, I mean, honestly, like, since I personally, like, I stand by everything that you say. I like stand by every part of the program, Chris. Like, it has been
Thank you. Keep it coming.
amazing.
More. I need more. No, just kidding.
Like, no, I commend you. I commend your wife. Your wife is amazing.
Yeah, not a lot of people know this, but I'm just the pretty face behind the brand. She's the best. No.
So, I mean, I have nothing but great things to say about you guys and your program because it's been one of the best things I've ever experienced.
Well, we're actually happy that it worked out for you, because I remember when I heard the news that you and your boyfriend had broken up, I was like, shit, that's like my best success story. It's like, God dang it, what am I going to do? And so I was really hoping that things would like work out for you, and it seems like they did. So, but I guess that just says more about your, not necessarily personality, but just the way you act and handle things. You're intelligent
definitely
about the way you handle things, and not a lot of people are in a highly emotional situation, you know?
Yeah, it's traumatic. It sucks. It hurts.
You heard it here first. It's traumatic, it sucks, and it hurts. The perfect way to sum up a breakup. No, but anyways, I gotta get going here. But before I do you have any last words of wisdom before I say bye-bye?
Ooh.
That was horrible. Before I say bye-bye? What the hell was that?
Hey, I'm not a bot.
Say again?
I'm not a bot.
Oh, God. So, if you don't already know, that's like kind of an inside joke on the Facebook group. Apparently, this is the funniest thing I've ever heard, but apparently, I forgot who told me this. I think it was Tia or something. She was telling me this. But someone in our group believes that all the people I'm talking to, like Sarah here, and also there's another girl named Corey, are robots that I've pre-programmed to come in and ask me questions during Facebook Lives. And so I remember someone told me this, and I just started bursting out laughing. And then I think it was like you and Corey Levine, she like thought you guys were like robots. And I was telling Corey about this, and she was just bursting out laughing, and then you started to burst out laughing. It was just like why would I even put that much effort into like faking this? Like, this is crazy.
No, that was the best thing.
Yeah. Well, anyways, I really appreciate you taking the time today, Sarah, or should I say Buffy?
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah.
I really appreciate everything.